on our radar. We also have lots of tropical storm warnings in effect. Those still got reissued just a few minutes ago, and they are in effect until further notice. So we're going to continue to stay pretty breezy here as Harold continues to track across into the southwestern side of the state, eventually downgrading to a tropical depression. You can see the center of circulation is a little bit removed from where the NHC is putting this on the map, but they do have it as making landfall not too long ago at 9:50. They posted that it made landfall along Padre Island, about 50 miles south of Corpus Christi and about 35 miles north of Port Mansfield, where it was originally expected to make landfall. It had winds up to 50 miles per hour and gusts to 65, which is, again, what I just showed y'all. So all of this to say we are in the thick of hurricane season right now, 3 weeks away from the peak of the season. And in the last day or two, we've had everything from Emily to Harold get checked off of our list. So we've had lots of names get used up here. And again, Harold is the one impacting us right now. Here's a little closer view of the coastal bend. We've had these bands of rain moving across the area through this morning. You can see the earliest ones were about 3, 4, 5 a.m. and continued to move across. So we are seeing rain across most of the entire coastal bend this morning. You can also see that circulation here just to the southeast of Baffin Bay, where earlier this morning we did have some tornado warnings for potential water spouts. We had 2 of those warnings, but they have since expired as of 8:45. Again, no warnings right now except for that flash flood warning I'll get to in a minute that is in effect for parts of San Pat, Nueces, and Clayburgh counties. Lots of lightning and heavy rains with these storms. Here's a look from our tower cam right now. Very slick roads if you are out on your way to work or that delayed start for school. Please be careful on the roads. It is very breezy and rainy outside. You can even see some of the rain moving diagonally across our screen, as well as we apparently took the flag down. I don't see it anymore here on our tower camera. 80 degrees feels like 87, so other than the beneficial rain, that cool down is definitely one other nice factor. Here's a look at our Lex Cam pointed over towards, I believe, the art center and art museum, where we have those waves crashing up against the wall there. And earlier we saw some of those breaking over into the parking lot. So again, we have those rain chances through the entire day today. Temperatures staying much below normal compared to where we have been in recent days in the triple digits. We're going to stay in those 80s this afternoon, and you'll see the rain chances slowly fading out into this evening, but they are still there, and that is from those feeder bands. So here's a look again at the radar right now with that flash flood warning. You can kind of see the outline right here in that red color. That's going to last for another little while until 12:45, so that's about another 2 hours 45 minutes from now. The darker red, that is the tropical storm warning that is in effect until further notice. So let's check in on your area. Here's where that flash flood warning is. Again, a little bit better view of it without the radar. So now let's zoom into different parts of the coastal bend to see what's going on for your part of the area. So here's a look at the southeastern side where that flash flood warning is in effect again until 12:45. We've got lots of rain falling, multiple inches of rain have been estimated by our radar at this time, with about over an inch reported in the south side as of 9:30. So I'm sure with the continued rainfall, that's going to continue to increase. So of course we cannot stress enough, turn around, don't drown. Also, if you see standing water, please don't walk into it. You don't know what could be in there. There could be a snake or something even nastier than that in there. So now going over towards the brush country, you can see not as much activity as there was earlier, but we still do have a couple of heavy downpours towards Freer and Hebronville, where they are seeing the edge of this heaviest rain shield starting to move into the very western stretch of Jim Wells and into eastern Duval County at this time. Up for our northern counties, we've got the very tips of those feeder bands or rain bands coming back around and down into the center of circulation, which again is down towards the Baffin Bay area. Not quite over Baffin Bay, but in that generic area. So here's what we're looking at for our northern counties. They haven't seen as much rain as us here in Corpus Christi, and I think that will continue. So our southern counties, they're going to be seeing more rain and more wind as compared to our northern counties, but y'all should still be preparing again for those tropical storm impacts. Here's what we're looking at in terms of Corpus Christi area. We've got lots of rain, again, that flash flood warning going until 12:45. On our velocity scan, I'm not seeing anything of note. You can note those two little spin ups that we had earlier, but right now all looks pretty calm. And here is where our rainfall totals are standing. This is a little different map than I showed earlier. It's got the same coloring, but these are just the official reports. I haven't been able to tack in every little area here, but you can see lots of rain has fallen over the coastal bend, and you'll see those heavier downpours where that majority of the rain is currently down towards Clayburgh County and Baffin Bay, and slowly decreasing in coverage as we head up towards Bee and Live Oak counties. Now here's one more last big view of the future cast. We're going to continue to see Harold go into South Texas and move across towards the coast, but notice we still, again, like I said, have that rain chance with those rain bands wrapping around into that circulation, not only through this afternoon, but even into this evening and into overnight. So even into Wednesday morning and Wednesday afternoon, we're still seeing the chance for some scattered rain as the sea breeze is going to interact with lots of leftover moisture from Harold. So here's a little zoomed in view hour by hour so you can pick out your neighborhood. 81 at 9 o'clock, which we are already past now. You can see it's still the spin of that wind field going down to the center of Harold here just to our south, with that big rain shield continuing to move across, and you can see the lighter rain for our northern counties. Winds still going to be very gusty east at 27 miles per hour here heading into noon, and by the time you're picking up kids, if they had school today or leaving from work, we are still seeing that rain chance even into this evening. Thankfully, one good thing other than the beneficial rainfall is these cooler temperatures. We're going to stay in the 80s from this afternoon even into tomorrow morning. So it's going to be muggy with a few scattered showers outside tomorrow, and then heading into tomorrow around lunchtime, we still have the chance again for those scattered showers, but they're not widespread as they are this morning. So we are going to see temperatures warmer tomorrow afternoon, likely in the lower 90s. So not where we have been in recent days, but still warmer than we will be today. Then heading into tomorrow evening, we continue to cool off. So one last thing here is the wind speed. This is what we're looking at right now. The green is tropical depression strength and the blue is tropical storm strength. These are the sustained winds, so not the gusts. I'll pull that up in a minute. The sustained winds, we are starting to see tropical storm force winds out at the Naval Air Station and just down south into the offshore waters of Kennedy County. Now here's where the wind gusts are. We have 52 mile per hour wind gusts at the Naval Air Station, 38 in Corpus Christi, and even over into Robstown. So we are starting to see these, again, tropical storm strength, this blue color here, wind gusts in the coastal bend, and those are going to continue to increase into lunchtime. So we're not just done yet. Even though the storm has made landfall, we still have to get through the back half of this thing. So here's what that's looking like in terms of wind speeds. Very gusty across the southern coastal bend, not quite as bad towards our northern counties, and then into the rest of this evening and afternoon, those winds do calm down a little bit. Heading into the rest of your Tuesday and Wednesday, those winds thankfully not quite as bad. One last check here, 7-day forecast. That tropical system still influencing our weather a little bit for tomorrow, but by Thursday and Friday, we are nice and toasty again for the first nights of Friday night football. I know I'm definitely looking forward to that. Mike.
All right. Well, a lot of good information there. If you happen to miss any of that, don't worry. We're going to reset everything for you as the morning goes on, as we're seeing a lot of heavy rain. Of course, we have throughout the morning had different crews and teams at different parts of the coastal bend trying to keep an eye on things. One of those is our Simone Simpson. She's been out at the island this morning, but is now over at the beach near Bob Hall Pier. And Simone, I can't help but notice that you are in the car. That tells me it must be raining out there. What can you tell us?
Hey, good morning, Mike. Yes, it has been wild out here. I mean, as my photographer and I, Jeremy, have just been sitting in the car is rocking. That's just how high the winds are. But I want to bring your attention to me while I'm sitting in the passenger seat. People may not believe us how strong that wind is. I'm about to show you. If I'm not holding on to the car door, that would certainly come off. So we want to advise people to please stay at home. I know people want to come out, take some videos, take some pictures, but don't worry about that. Stay home, stay safe. We're out in the environment to show you the live pictures, but it's best if you stay home. It's not worth the risk. But something that I heard that Carly and Kristen were mentioning were the wind gusts. I had my anemometer earlier with the wind meter, and it described winds as high as is 47 miles per hour. That was about half an hour ago, but it's raining much harder than it has been all morning since we've been live since 5 a.m. So Mike, I'm gonna turn it back to you unless you have any questions for me.
Hey, Simone.
Carly,
it's
I'm gonna toss it over to you.
Yeah, you never know. We can't see each other. People don't know that when they're watching this coverage. But what we're looking at now are those wind speeds. So Simone was mentioning that she saw on her anemometer 47 mile per hour wind speeds, and that was before Harold made landfall just to our south in Kennedy County. So Tropical Storm Harold officially made landfall in northern Kennedy County along Padre Island National Seashore. Now the Naval Air Station in Flower Bluff is reporting a 52 mile per hour wind gust. Wind is sustained at 38 miles per hour at the Naval Air Station, and that's really the closest wind reader that we have to the center of this storm until it starts to track closer to Kingsville and Falfurrias. So right now we're dealing with 38 mile per hour sustained winds. I expect that to be closer to 45, 50 miles per hour into Kennedy County. And additionally, those gusts are easily up to 60 miles per hour. That's going to continue to move to the west. So as the storm moves west, we're going to see the purple contour continue to move west as well. And that's going to bring those 40 to 50 to even 60 mile per hour winds into Kingsville, into Alice, into Falfurrias, and into Hebronville throughout the day. Something else that I want to mention, Simone now taking shelter inside her car. We've got 14-foot waves being registered at our buoy, which is 70 nautical miles offshore, right? Closer to the coast, we are dealing with 8 to 12-foot waves on our coastline. Now those crash pretty far out just how the waves roll into our beach, and so it's not quite that high closer to the water. There we have it. This is a live look. Which tower camera or Port Aransas camera? This is a beach camera in Port Aransas, and you can see just how it's raining, and so visibility has dropped pretty drastically. B, we are seeing those waves way offshore, and that's where they're crashing at that 8 to 12 foot level. And then they do get smaller as they get closer to the coast, but they're pushing further inland because they still have that energy of that 8 to 12 foot wave as it is rolling into the beach. And so to take a look at how long we'll be dealing with these really high waves as this storm moves through, look at that north turn it made. As it moves through, we're still talking 8 to 12 foot waves through 4 p.m. and that's going to be as Harold is almost approaching the coast, the Texas and Mexico coast there near Laredo, right? So we're still dealing with the potential for 8-foot waves by 4 p.m. Still really rough conditions out on the water. It doesn't really calm down to 4 to 6 foot waves until early Wednesday morning. Then we will quickly see our waves go down to 2 to 4 feet as we continue on along. But this, as you saw in Simone's live shot also, it's been dumping rainfall. Right now, this is just our 3-hour rainfall totals that we're looking at. And that's not very long, right? That's just 3 hours of rainfall. Extremely heavy rainfall into Kennedy County and in northern or southern Claiborne County, where we did see the storm make landfall. We're talking radar estimating up to 3 inches of rain, and there's a lot more rain on the way. As the storm continues to make its way onto land, we have the feeder bands that are going to continue into Nueces County and Claiborne County, but it really looks like we're going to continue to see a heavy rainfall through Nueces County as we go well into the afternoon as these feeder bands continue to move into the coastal bend. Mike.
Why that happened.
All right, thanks for that, Carly. And of course, Carly and Kristen working so hard this morning to keep us updated with the latest information as things have changed with Tropical Storm Harold, particularly as it has come ashore here and is beginning to bring that heavy rain and some of that wind. We've got a lot more coverage that we're going to stick with this morning, but for now, let's take a break and we'll be back right after this.
Mic check 1, 2, 3.
Welcome back. We are continuing live coverage of our tracking of Tropical Storm Harold. Lots of rain, wind in parts of the coastal bend, particularly in some of the southern parts of our viewing area, and we're doing our best to keep you caught up with all of that. Now, with this kind of storm, obviously you expect there to be power outages, and we certainly have those across the coastal bend. In fact, over 3,500 customers is our estimate now. Looking at the power outage map, this is the AEP outage map, and you can pull that up on your phone or laptop as well. Those outages happening, it looks to be in Rockport, in Portland, of course, the south side of Corpus Christi, and really scattered throughout the coastal bend. A lot of that because of some of the wind that we're seeing and some of the other factors that are involved there. Now, if you are one of the many experiencing an outage right now, or maybe some of your lights have gone out, some of the power is not there, there are some things that we want to remind you about this morning in order for you to be able to stay safe. First of all, stay away from any sparking equipment or downed power lines. These things can happen. They can pique your curiosity. Stay away from that. Don't go anywhere near it. Never remove debris that's within 10 feet of a power line. You don't know what is charged out there. You don't know what you may find or run into, and it is just not worth the risk. Also, be sure to unplug any major appliances. If you do that, it helps to protect them when the power eventually comes back on. You can also just leave a light on, and that'll be a good indicator for you of when the power is restored, and you'll know when you can go back and begin to look at safely plugging things back in. Be sure to refuel heaters, lamps, and generators outside. That's never something you want to do in your house. Certainly don't turn on a generator inside your house. Keep it away from windows in order to avoid any of the gas, the carbon monoxide that might get in there. Keep it as far away as you can from your house if you absolutely have to use a generator. And this probably goes without saying, but let's say it anyway, don't burn charcoal indoors. Not something you want to do. And if you decide to light up your house with candles or oil lamps, don't let children carry those. You want to do everything you can in a situation like this in order to stay safe. So just some reminders for you. If you do happen to lose power this morning at some point, remember you can maybe jump on your phone and you can find our 3 News app, and you can keep up with all of the latest updates that we have for you here. Now, in response to Tropical Storm Harold, Governor Abbott has ordered the Texas Division of Emergency Management to send state emergency response resources to the coastal bend and to the Rio Grande Valley. In fact, this is Governor Abbott's statement on Harold. He says that the state is prepared to swiftly deploy resources to those communities that have been impacted. He also encourages you to continue to listen to state and local officials, and of course, stay with us because we'll bring you that information here and we'll keep you updated on exactly what is happening. Now, Carly is with us once again. Carly, any changes or anything that people need to know about in terms of Harold and the storm and what's happening right now?
Yeah, of course, the biggest change is that Harold is bringing some of the strongest wind to the coastal bend, and you will see that on this graphic that I have behind me. We're dealing with 55-mile-per-hour gusts at the Naval Air Station right now, 52-mile-per-hour gust in Corpus Christi. So strong winds moving into the area as we speak, and that's going to be as Tropical Storm Harold continues to move inland into Kennedy County, where it did make landfall in northern Kennedy County along Padre Island National Seashore. And so here's a look at where that storm currently is. Something that I want to touch on is where we're seeing those heaviest rain bands. We're going to see some of the strongest winds right around the storm. And additionally, as I get rid of the tropical track, you can really see where the center of that area of low pressure is. It's something that kind of happens within these storms is you do kind of see that it kind of, that's the wrong arrow, ignore the miles, but it kind of is again reforming a little bit south than where it was when it formed to the north. So the center of this low is going to continue to kind of fluctuate across the areas. It just kind of reforms and continues to move inland, and also deals with shear and so forth that is associated with the friction that causes as it makes landfall. But as we take a look at some of the radar velocities, you can really see how now as it's moving inland, we're getting the wind moving toward the radar now across Padre Island National Seashore and Padre Island. That's going to continue to be the trend. We're going to see a big shift in our easterly winds, but heavy, strong winds reaching 70 miles per hour possible in northern Kennedy County, 60-mile-per-hour winds. This is high up on the radar, but closer to the radar beam, near the surface, our radar is indicating 64-mile-per-hour winds possible near the radar across Corpus Christi Bay. So really strong winds are going to be very possible with this storm as it continues to push inland, and we continue to see these feeder bands moving into the area. And so Alexis Green has been out monitoring conditions across our bay, Corpus Christi Bay. I see the Lex camera barely behind you there now as the rain is lowering the visibility. But Alexis, how have conditions changed throughout the morning, and what are you seeing now?
Hey Carly, it has been ever changing out here all morning. Just a minute ago, I was about to tell you that the rain was kind of letting up a little bit, but as soon as we got on, the rain is pouring down, but really the wind is the big factor here. We went ahead and took it up a level just for some safety reasons, because that storm surge was getting rowdy down there. So we came up to the American Bank Center level, but we still want to show you that storm surge still active. The bay is still very active. The waves are crashing down. The parking lot there for a minute was kind of filling up and kind of flooding up all the way to these second lines. So that luckily has gone down a little bit. You can still see those waves breaking on the seawall, but it's just an ever-changing moment. It's those bands you mentioned. It's just coming, it's leaving, it's coming, it's leaving. But it is definitely still an active scene down here at the Art Museum. Definitely better than it looked 3 years ago during Hurricane Hannah, and we are definitely glad to hear that. But be sure to stay with us on air, online, as we continue to bring you updates and show you live looks how Tropical Storm Harold is impacting everyone across South Texas. Back to you, Carly.
That's a really neat view. We had just taken the Lex camera showing from up above how the waves are crashing. Again, they're not necessarily inundating, it looks like, that lower parking level, but Lexus, something that I wanted to ask you was remind us of what time you arrived there and how conditions were, and now how conditions have escalated in that time frame.
Absolutely. Okay, well, first off, let's give some applause to that wind that's blowing in. Photojournalist Maitland is holding his ground, but we're going to get through this. So around 7 a.m. this morning, it was blackout. It was calm. The waves are a little choppy, but as you can tell now, it is just, once it hit landfall, you know, I'm not near the computers. I'm not tracking it like you guys. All I can explain to you is how I feel and what I'm seeing, and you definitely knew that it was here because, you know, the waves, the wind, the rain, it's just a completely different scene out here, and it's been really cool to kind of watch it develop for you guys.
Thank you so much, Lexus. Yeah, right now we're dealing with 52-mile-per-hour wind gusts out there near Corpus Christi, near the bay as well. So definitely some strong wind gusts that you guys have been enduring out there. And we're going to continue. We still at Flower Bluff have 55-mile-per-hour winds, and then offshore the winds have weakened now at our buoy. They're about 34 miles per hour, but that's what we can continue to expect as this moves inland. We're going to start to see the winds increasing in Orange Grove, Alice, Falfurrias, Hebronville, Kingsville. Also, you're at 32 miles per hour. Expect within the next 30 minutes, I would say by 11 o'clock, you'll be seeing some 50-mile-per-hour winds as well. Mike.
All right, thank you for that, Carly. We appreciate the update. We will continue to watch all of the things that are happening right now with Tropical Storm Harold. I want to mention something here. Whenever we have water like this, whenever there's flooding, we do understand the temptation to go and get in the middle of that. And I know a lot of folks do that. If you see flooding, this is your reminder. do not drive or walk through it. Right now would be the worst time for you to do any of that. This year, of course, we've seen a few flooding events here in the coastal bend, and we always have the stories of people who ignored that advice and who ended up paying the consequences. Now, keep in mind, you don't know what's in the high water at any given time. There could be debris there. There could be potholes that you're not aware of that are going to do some damage to your car. There are things that flow into that water like human and livestock waste. They're down power lines, other contaminants that would lead to illness. Also, we mentioned this earlier, snakes. You might find those in the water. Contaminated flood water can wound infections, skin rashes, tetanus, just a whole host of bad things happening there. So stay away from that and don't go into any flood water. Now, we want to show you again here with a live look from one of our beach cameras that we're using this morning along Mustang Island. That's from the Sandpiper condominiums there, and as you can see, thankfully, nobody out on the beach in this kind of weather with the rain and with the storm surge, the waves there. And so we want to keep an eye on that as well. We want you to be safe. We advise you to stay in and just stay with us, and we'll keep you updated. Let's take another quick break, and we'll be back after this.
Hello. Yeah, I had a little trouble hearing Barbie this morning. That's why it was kind of a false start there.
Check 1, 2. Ricky Daly, this is Mike Gillespie. Can you hear me at all?
Mike, I sure can. Good to hear your voice.
Good, good, good. Well, this ought to work out well then. We're going to come back from a break here in just a little bit, and then you and I will chat about what's going on outside.
All right. Good.
Thank you, sir. Hey, welcome back. We are continuing with our live coverage tracking Tropical Storm Harold this morning as it comes ashore and is making its presence known here in parts of the coastal bend. One of the key issues here is that we want to make sure that people remember to stay safe. Lots of curiosity when a storm like this hits and lots of people out and people trying to do their normal activities, but safety needs to be paramount. We want to go ahead and bring in Ricky Daly now. He is with TxDOT, of course, a familiar face here on our station. And Ricky, let's talk about safety and maybe any closures or any roadway conditions that people need to be aware of out there right now.
Sure, Mike. First, let's start with the one closure that we're aware of right now. It is related to the new Harbor Bridge project. It is at Northwest Loop Ramp. from southbound 181 to Crosstown is temporarily closed due to flooding. So please avoid that area. We'd like to keep all people off the road right now. We're getting some pretty heavy rain. We're also doing the turnaround on North Beach, the US 181 turnaround under the causeway right there. We have one lane closed. If the wind and the rain keeps pushing that tidal surge in, we may have to close that turnaround. Another area that we're monitoring is around Rivera, FM 1118, FM 772, and RM 622. There's some coastal bridges there along that coastal area. We're monitoring those just to see if they're affected by tidal surge or the rain or the wind. All of these are east of US 77, pretty sparsely populated area down there. The one other thing I wanted to update folks on is, again, we'd like to see that y'all stay at home. These are not conditions to be driving in. Rain is, it's a driving rain, and you've got you around. But the ferry operations at Port Aransas continues to operate. We don't see any likelihood that the ferries are going to have to pause operations. That's kind of the update on the roads, Mike. What else?
Well, as you mentioned there, you are advising folks to stay home. If they absolutely have to get out, they still have to use caution, right, Ricky?
Right. Yes. At all times. Just as you said earlier, if there are any barricades up, if you come into a intersection that's flooded, even without barricades, just turn around. You don't know what's under that water. You don't know how deep it is. It doesn't take much water to move a vehicle. And that's what we're concerned about. People coming up into intersections or coming up onto roads that might be flooded. We don't have any of those that we are aware of yet. Again, like y'all like to say, turn off your cruise control. If you have your cruise control on and you hit a slick spot, it's going to turn into lose control.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Ricky, just put
your phones down.
One more thing here. I know that when when you're out putting up those barricades, you don't do that just to inconvenience people. You do that because there are real safety issues, right?
That is correct. There, you can be fined if you move or if you go around those barriers. Those barriers are there for a reason. Our guys aren't getting out in the rain and putting up barriers just for the heck of it. They're putting them up to protect the public, to ensure public safety. The barriers are there for a reason. Please respect them. Don't drive around them. And again, if you don't need to drive, this is pretty fast moving system, as y'all are reporting. The rain and the wind should slack up later this afternoon. It's not worth getting out and risking your life or risking a crash. If you can hold off, please do.
All right, Ricky Daly with TxDOT. Ricky, thanks so much for your time. And of course, we always appreciate the updates, and I know our viewers appreciate getting to see you and have you share some of that. Thanks again. We do have breaking news that has come into our studio just minutes ago. Hebbronville High School has dismissed their students. That happened about 8 or 9 minutes ago at 10:30 this morning. The reason is because there's no electricity throughout the district. So if you have a student at the Hebbronville High School, if you have a student at school at Hebbronville, parents, go pick up your children. Again, no electricity, and they are letting the kids out early today. All right, we want to go back to Carly Smith, who again is tracking everything and the moments that I get to share with you on the air. She's back there working hard with Kristen Walla, our entire 3 News weather team, keeping an eye on Harold. What are we seeing now, Carly?
Yeah, I will add Chief Meteorologist Alan Holt also in the building, working behind the scenes as well. But right now, what we are seeing, Tropical Storm Harold is onshore, so it has made landfall. If we could switch to Max 2, 2, then we would be able to see the latest on Tropical Storm Harold. But right now, these are some of those wind speeds. These are sustained winds, I believe, that are 30 miles per hour, 36 miles per hour at the Naval Air Station. So that's a really strong sustained wind speed. Further south, where we don't have as many readings, weather stations close to Baffin Bay, we likely are going to see some of those stronger winds, but this is now showing the gust 49 to 55 miles per hour. I don't know if meteorologist Kristen Waller wants to add anything about the winds because that's her Max computer that we have pulled up.
Hey there. Yeah, I'm back here in the Weather Center hiding away so I can control my computer. But like Carly said, we've got plenty of strong winds right now, sustained winds anywhere from 15 to 30 miles per hour. You saw Kingsville go up just there. Out towards Hebbronville, where they canceled school just a few minutes ago, the winds aren't all that strong, but they'll get there as this system continues to make its way across the state of Texas this afternoon. So here's a look at the wind gusts. The blue indicates tropical storm strength winds, and that is where we fall here in Corpus Christi right now. I'll zoom it in for us. And even at the Naval Air Station, it's a little bit breezier. So right along the coast, that's where we typically find our higher wind speeds anyway. There's less friction from the water and there's not as much land or buildings. So add the tropical storm on top of that, we've got some pretty breezy winds this morning. And again, as this storm continues to move across the state of Texas this afternoon, we're going to see those winds increase across the coastal bend. So here's a look at that wind forecast. I've still got the same color map here where the green is tropical depression strength and the blue is tropical storm strength. These are the wind gusts, not the sustained winds. The sustained winds will be anywhere from 20 to maybe 40 miles per hour, probably at their highest for places like Clayburgh County and our southern areas, maybe the very tip of Jim Wells County and Duval County as we head into this afternoon. So here's the wind gust forecast right now. Very strong winds at the coast. And like I said, as you can see that wind field curling into right here on Future Track, 12 o'clock just south of Falfurrias as Harold makes its way inland, that is going to take the wind field with it. So our winds are going to turn from more northeasterly to a more easterly direction as this storm continues to move westward this afternoon. Wind gusts are going to follow it. So you can see even up towards Beeville, they're going to experience some higher gusts, especially where you get closer to that storm, like down towards Kingsville, Falfurrias. Those wind gusts are going to be pretty hefty into this afternoon. Here's a look at the wind gusts for 4 o'clock. If your school has not been canceled, you're heading home from work, those wind gusts in the 30 to 50 mile per hour range still. And then overnight, the winds are still going to be on the breezy side because we're still within the realm of influence of Harold, but into tomorrow afternoon, we're going to see this wind speed not be quite so high. The wind gusts are going to kind of drop off heading into tomorrow morning. So I think I'll send it over to Carly. She looks like she's on the wall and ready to talk with her computer there. Carly.
Yeah, Kristen, here's a broad overview of Tropical Storm Harold. Again, the latest update was at 10 a.m. We're now approaching 10:42, but it had 50 mile per hour winds there as it made landfall officially at 9:50 along Padre Island National Seashore. Those gusts 65 miles per hour. And so we are seeing those gusts nearing 60 miles per hour in spots across the coastal bend now. When it comes to rainfall, we still have all of this, right? Those feeder bands that are going to continue to move into, it looks like now as it continues on this path, it's going to be right into Corpus Christi Bay and then into northern Nueces County and San Patricio County. That's where I expect the heavy rainfall to continue because this is going to take all of this pretty much just evenly along this line inland as the storm continues to track toward Laredo over into this evening, right? Taking a closer look into Nueces County, we are under a flash flood warning. That flash flood warning is until 12:45 for southern San Patricio County along Corpus Christi Bay. So that's going to be Ingleside by the Bay, Ingleside, Aransas Pass. All of these areas are under a flash flood warning. It floods pretty easily over here as well. I remember the last time it flooded, it was very difficult to drive on those streets through Aransas Pass and Ingleside on the way to Rockport. So Rockport, you are not under this flash flood warning. The heavy rain just to your south into Aransas Aransas County, or into more so San Patricio County, just south of Aransas County. But Aransas Pass and Port Aransas are under that flash flood warning, as well as Padre Island, Corpus Christi, Robstown, Driscoll, these areas, Kingsville, Rivera, all under the flash flood warning until 12:45, and you can see heavy rainfall still expected. I think Clayburgh County is going to start to see a little bit of a break in the rain, but you still have a few isolated feeder bands that are going to track along the northern edge that will be a little bit more off and on than what I'm expecting for those areas right along Corpus Christi Bay. Estimated rainfall totals, this is over the past 12 hours. So you can see really heavy rainfall where that center of the storm passed through. So we're dealing with is passing through still, and just to the north of there. So 2.9 inches into portions of Clayburgh County, but radar estimating 4.9 up to 3.4 inches into northern Kennedy County. Corpus Christi, right near, actually this is close to the Naval Air Station, and additionally Texas A&M Corpus Christi reporting 2.4 inches based on radar. They're not reporting it actually. And then even 2.1 inches a little bit further inland into Nueces County near the Bishop area. So what we are looking at is a lot of rain that has already fallen, and then all of the rain that I showed you falling. And so right now this is the view where Lexus Green is down here of the waves crashing up on our Lex camera, and it's shaking because we're zoomed in and it's extremely windy, and those winds are only going to continue to remain strong. We've got 37-mile-per-hour sustained winds right now at the airport, 79 degrees. Rain expected to continue, I would say, well into the afternoon, at least through 1 p.m., 2 p.m. So now here's Futurecast. We're going to continue this into the lunch hour, so 12. I've been working here so long, I feel like it's already 12, but it's not. It's only 10:46. And so by lunchtime, we're getting more into those feeder bands. I think this model may have it a little bit further to the south. I would say this, I would expect more so across Corpus Christi Bay as it's moving in based on the live radar. But what I want to just emphasize is we're still going to have some areas in the coastal bend seeing that heavy rainfall and the flooding potential through lunchtime, and our winds still around 27 miles per hour in Corpus Christi. Then Hebbronville, you're going to see the center of the storm, which could still be bringing at least tropical depression strength winds, if not weekend tropical storm winds, as it moves closer to you. And so that's essentially the potential for sustained winds around 30 to 40 miles per hour, and then some gusts maybe even stronger as the storm moves inland. We will start to see some of those feeder bands weakening, but I still expect some feeder bands somewhere between Rockport and Kingsville to continue through 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We finally start to see activity becoming a little bit more isolated in the area, but lots of heavy rainfall is expected to continue. Once again, right here is where the center of the storm is now, as it is tracking across Kennedy County. It's going to cross over 77, and it is heading a little bit to the west-northwest, so that'll cross just south of Falfurrias and north of Encino there along 281 with the current update. But again, remember when we were tracking those tornadoes? That was a long time ago. Mentioning those tornadoes, we still could see some isolated tornadoes in those outer bands. So that's another threat that we're going to continue to keep track of all day long. Mike.
Carly Smith, thanks so much. Our entire 3 News weather team, we appreciate the diligent work that they're doing in order to make sure that we all have the latest information about Tropical Storm Harold. I want to take a look from the Lex Cam now, if we can pull that up and show you what's happening closer to downtown. That's over at the Art Museum, where Lexus Green has been reporting from this morning. You can see the waves and the surge making their way over the wall. That's been happening for a while now. Just keep in mind, that's what folks are dealing with if you happen to have to be downtown. Let's take a quick break, and we're back with more right
Oh my God!
We are back. Just before we took a break, we showed you from our Lex camera what was happening down at the Art Museum of South Texas. As it happens, 3 News reporter Lexis Green is there this morning, where she has been all morning. And Lexis, it appears that the wind and the rain have not let up down there. Can you hear us? And if so, give us an update. All right, she can't hear us right now, so you see her, she's got her phone out and she's trying to reestablish connection so that we can get that update. She has talked this morning about the conditions there and about what has happened and how much it has changed there. Lexis, it looks like things are still continuing. Give us an update.
Hey, Mike, thanks for being so understanding. It's a little bit hectic out here, as you can tell, and we did take a step higher to higher grounds for safety reasons, but we do want to give you a live update at the area near the Art Museum where, oh my goodness, this storm surge is just probably the highest we've seen it. Those waves, the wave pattern, the amount of the way it's breaking on the parking lot, there is just a lot of water coming in right now. As our weather team has mentioned, you know, they had some expected rainfall, they had some expected winds, but those bands, and this, what's happening right now, is definitely one of those stronger bands. The wind is gusting very strongly right now. Me and my photojournalist were, you know, taking a break from the weather in the car, and it was actually shaking the vehicle. The winds out here in this area are very, very strong, so if you can avoid it, please do. Please continue to stay with 3 News on air and online as we continue to bring you the latest. Thanks so much, and everyone be safe out there.
Hey there, Lexis. Thanks for braving the elements out there for us. Let's check our tower cam behind me real quick. You can see very slick roads outside right now with some heavy rain. Winds are definitely on the gusty side right now here in Corpus Christi. We'll take a check of our Lex Cam here in just a second. Maybe my clicker. I am going to go walk to my computer, but y'all can keep it on me. My clicker decided to oh, thank you, Alan. Alan Holt to the rescue. He's going to click me through my stuff. Tower cam right now. We are very breezy. 37-mile-per-hour sustained gusts, 79 degrees with, again, that very heavy rain. So it feels closer to 83 outside. So here's that North Beach cam. We flipped it around from where Lexis was to show North Beach because we've got a report of the 181 turnaround at North Beach being flooded. So please make sure that you are taking careful while driving out and about today if you do have to go somewhere. If not, just stay home and enjoy a movie in the rainy weather. That is absolutely perfect. You can see lots of waves there, and I'll toss over to Carly in just a little bit to talk more about those waves. But for now, let's take a look at your forecast for this Tuesday, getting up to the lower and middle 80s, the upper and middle 80s, I should say, for Corpus Christi because of all the clouds and rain. That's going to keep us a lot cooler than we have been in the past couple of days. You can also see the rain chances over this morning gradually decreasing as we head into this afternoon to about 40 to 30%. That's going to happen as we see the bulk of that rain move out of the coastal bend, but we're still going to be in line to receive some of those feeder bands. I'll get to that in just a second. Here's a look at the rest of the tropics. They are definitely waking up. We've got Emily, Franklin, Gert, and Harold. All of these storms have formed since the weekend. Up until then, the last named storm had been Dawn, and that was quite a while ago. So we are well on our way to the peak of hurricane season here in about 3 weeks. Here's a look at where Harold is. It's got winds of 50 miles per hour at this time, and you can see here's the radar. You can also see the previous track of it. At first it was just that potential tropical cyclone, then it was the tropical depression, and then earlier this morning it got named into a tropical storm, and that's when it got the name Harold. Now I'm going to zoom it in here and you'll notice it made this weird little jump up to the north. So instead of making landfall down towards Kennedy County where it had been expected, now it made landfall up towards the Kennedy-Clayburgh County line. So that's where it made landfall just before 10 a.m. was on Padre Island, right around there. So that's where that storm still currently is. It's got winds of 50 miles per hour, 65-mile-per-hour gusts as of that 10 a.m. update. And here's where the cone sits right now. You can see as it continues across into the brush country over to the border, it's going to downgrade likely into a tropical depression as it loses steam. It's not going to be over these very warm Gulf waters anymore. You can also see underneath all of this mess, we've got this big red block. That is the tropical storm warning going from now until the weather Weather Service decides that it shouldn't be there. It's until further notice, but the one that we do have in effect is going to be a flash flood warning for some of our counties here along the coast. And I'll show that in just a minute, but you can really see right here how it made that jump from down here to up towards the Kennedy-Clayburgh County line. And this is something that Tropical Storm or Hurricane Nicholas in 2021 did as well. It kind of reformed its center in a couple of different places. So the weaker storms tend to do that when they're not all that organized and when they are trying to organize. So here's a look at where Harold kind of made landfall. It was a tropical storm again right before 10 o'clock, 50 miles south of Corpus Christi, so not too far off from us, but it was a bit north of where it was initially anticipated to make landfall, 35 miles north of Port Mansfield. Right down here was where it was initially expected to make landfall, but that jump with the center reforming put it somewhere in this area. Here's a look at satellite radar and temperatures right now. Very cloudy, rainy, and windy outside, so not the best weather conditions unless you're wanting to stay inside. 79 in Corpus Christi. You can see the center of that storm kind of wrapping around right here where the center is going to continue to track across into the brush country again later this afternoon and eventually towards the Mexico border. We're going to continue to see lots of rain here. That's why we have this flash flood warning in effect, including parts of San Patricio, Nueces, and Clayburgh counties right up towards the coast. That includes the islands. This is going to go until 12:45. So for about another 2 to 3 hours, because we're going to continue to see very heavy rainfall here in the coastal bend. Again, the big red box, that is the tropical storm warning going until further notice. Here's a better look of that flash flood warning and the areas that it encompasses, even possibly the very tip of Aransas County right there. But very heavy rain continuing to fall, not only there, but across the entire coastal bend. So let's take it neighborhood by neighborhood, if you will, into the coastal bend. We've got lots of rain here in the southeast part towards the tip of Jim Wells into western Clayburgh and southwestern Nueces County. This big shield of rain, that yellow part, that's pretty heavy rain. So I wouldn't be too surprised if we end up seeing more flooding warnings or reports of multiple inches of rain in some places. These tropical downpours can put down quite a bit of rain, as we have seen. Here's a look towards Duval County and the brush country. They're starting to see some of the heavier rain as we head into the 11 o'clock hour. Earlier this morning, they were just seeing some of those very outer bands making their way all the way around, kind of like our northern counties are. Now they're starting to get a little bit more of that bulk of rain, just the edge of it up towards Mathis, maybe over towards George West at best, but usually, or rather, they're just not seeing as much as we are here in Corpus Christi and especially down towards Clayburgh County. So that's where the bulk of the rain is. Again, flash flood warning in effect until 12:45. And if we take it now here, some of that rain is essentially causing lowered visibility. So normally we use this for fog. Now we're using it for rain. It's very heavy to the point that it's decreasing visibility. So we've got that on top of the very slick roads. So please make sure that you are taking care as you are driving. Here's a look at rainfall totals across the coastal bend. 2 inches reported out at the airport, 1.2 inches at the Naval Air Station. So these are the official reported numbers around the coastal bend. And this isn't my graphic with the little tiny numbers in every single place. I'll get that one updated as quick as I can, but this one is current. The reds and the purples and the blues, those are all radar estimated rainfall totals. So very heavy rain, like I said, expected in our southern counties, and we're slowly going to see some of these darker colors creep across into these other counties as Harold continues to move across into the rest of South Texas. So here's one last look at what that's going to look like through the rest of today. That big rain shield, like I said, now right about here, it's going to continue to move to the northwest of that storm, but we're still going to be seeing these feeder bands in Corpus Christi and surrounding areas as Harold continues to track across into Mexico this afternoon. So we're seeing these feeder bands still into this evening, even into overnight and into tomorrow morning. So we're not quite out of the woods in terms of rainfall, but the winds should hopefully be calming down as we head into tomorrow morning. So let's check on those winds here if my graphic doesn't want to go. Here we go. Here's a look at the velocity scan right now. Radar estimated winds aren't a heck of a lot strong right now, but we'll pull them up here. There we go. 36 miles per hour in Corpus Christi is the sustained winds, and 46 miles per hour, so definitely strong right there. That is tropical storm force winds, although my graphic is not updating that. The tropical storm force begins at 39 miles per hour, goes up to 73, at which point becomes a Category 1 hurricane. But we aren't seeing the blue here on my wind speed map, but it should be up here on my wind gust map. 63 mile per hour gust out at the Naval Air Station. So very breezy conditions here in Corpus Christi. And I'm going to toss it over to Carly. These winds are going to make for some very big waves. So here's Carly with more on those waves and the beach conditions.
Yeah, the stronger the winds are, the bigger the waves are going to be. That's essentially what creates a swell. But we're so close to the coast now, we're just getting that really choppy action coming into the area. So we're seeing 8 to 12 foot waves. In fact, the latest reading at our buoy is now up to 15 foot. That's the closest buoy to Corpus Christi. And along the coast, we're seeing 8 to 12 foot waves easily. They may be crashing further off the coast. If you were to stand at the coast and look at the waves, you probably would not think they are that high. But I will say, once that wave gets to the point where the lower half of the wave is interacting with our sandbars, it's going to crash, and it could be as high as 8 to 12 feet well offshore. So that's what we're looking at with our waves. As you can see, this is the path it took earlier this morning as our waves really started to pick up. That was around 8 a.m. and then by 11 a.m. We are going to continue to see those high waves through at least 4 p.m. before things start to calm down as the storm moves further inland and gets away from our coastline. Something else we're watching for really closely now that we are dealing with some of the outer bands of the system moving into the coastal bend is going to be the potential for those weak tropical tornadoes that do tend to form in the outer bands. So we're keeping a really close eye on our northern counties. So when we're looking at velocity, some of those areas are going to be near south of George West and near Mathis, as well as approaching San Diego. You're going to see some stronger winds within the storms that are moving through that area. So that's what we're looking at on reflectivity. You can see the heavier rainfall there near George West and Mathis. Essentially, no tornado warnings at this time. But with that being said, these tropical tornadoes can easily spin up at any time because it's speed shear that's essentially developing them, and it's a lot different than how a supercell tornado were to develop. So faster winds up at the surface or high in the atmosphere within that tropical storm, slower winds down at the surface as the tropical storm is moving inland is really what does create that kind of scenario. Again, we're not seeing any tornado warnings at this time, but it's something that we are watching really closely throughout the morning as the system is continuing to move inland, and we're really interacting with those outer bands, and those outer bands are interacting with the drier air and the calmer wind speeds, especially on the northern side of the system where we're not seeing that much rainfall. Mike.
All right, good information, Carly. Thank you for that, and thank you to Kristen also for continuing to keep us updated. Of course, with this kind of rain and wind, you would expect there to be power outages, and we're seeing that they are going up across the coastal bend. In fact, we're told that there are now over 7,500 customers without power. Taking a live look at the AEP outage map, and you can pull that up on your phone or laptop as well. You can see there the outages happening, of course, in Rockport and Portland and the south side of Corpus Christi. I think there are probably close to 5,000 people just in Corpus Christi alone that are without power. But again, these are happening all across the coastal bend, as you might expect, and we'll try to keep you updated on those. If you do happen to lose power, remember, get on your phone, pull up the 3 News app so that we can continue to keep you updated on the latest on Tropical Storm Harold. Of course, speaking of power outages, for the last week, AEP Texas has been closely monitoring what was a tropical disturbance that then became a tropical storm overnight. Communications Manager Omar Lopez tells 3 News that they've been lining up resources to try to make sure that they have plenty of crews on standby who will be available all along the Texas coast. Now, as with many of us, the company wasn't sure where exactly Harold would make landfall. So when the storm made that sharp shift left that we talked about this morning, they quickly moved resources closer to the Rio Grande Valley and right here to the Corpus Christi area in order to reach as many people who are affected as possible. AEP says they are ready. They are responding to the scattered outages in our area. Omar Lopez, again, their spokesperson, says the most important thing that they want residents to keep in mind, of course, here is, and we mentioned this earlier, safety is the #1 priority.
Because the heavy rains and heavy winds can affect power lines, we do ask everyone to stay away from down power lines. You may see one in your street or in your yard. Consider it energized and dangerous. Don't touch anything that's touching the power lines. Stay 10 feet away from it. Also, because of the heavy winds and heavy rains and the storm in general, if you are on any kind of life-saving equipment, we ask that you just make plans for an extended power outage if that were to happen. So make sure you have a backup system for your life-saving equipment.
And he, of course, added that if you do use backup generators, make sure that you're carefully following the manufacturer's instructions, again, in order to keep your home and family safe. Well, we have not checked in with our Simone Simpson in a while, and I see that she has moved from the car. I believe you're out there on Padre Island. Simone, give us an update.
Hey, Mike. Yes, we're back at our original location since 5 a.m. this morning on North Padre Island. And speaking of power outages, I'm glad you just had a segment all about that. When we arrived back at our hotel, the staff there confirmed that they are without power here as well. So like you mentioned, there are a lot of customers dealing with that. But we wanted to show you live pictures of the waves and just how different they are from when we originally reported how the beach was looking at 5 a.m. You can definitely see that the waves are much more aggressive than they were earlier this morning. We have seen a lot of people out and about around this community, and that's basically due to the hotel being without power. But everyone is, for the most part, is staying off of the beaches, Mike. And toss it back to you.
All right, and that's a good thing. We want to remind everybody to stay off of the beaches. Don't get curious and go out and get yourself into trouble, but just stay home if you can. Stay with us here on the air and, of course, on our 3 News app. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break, and as we do that, here's another live look outside along the North Beach area this morning. Remember, if you see any standing water, be aware of that. Don't drive into it. Be aware of anything that may look suspicious or dangerous this morning. We'll continue to keep you updated on Tropical Storm Harold when we come back after the break. Welcome back. We continue to track Tropical Storm Harold as we bring you the latest information on what is happening here in Corpus Christi and in our part of the coastal bend. We want to take a look at some video that was sent in from a viewer. This, as I understand it, was taken from the top of the Alexa apartments. And if you're familiar with those are along Ocean and Airline in that area. And again, what we want you to notice here from the video is some of that surge, the waves coming in high as the viewer records. That's about what you will see all along the coastline, stretching along over especially into the downtown area, and that's what poses some danger. So we've reminded people all morning just to stay off of the beach, stay away from the waves. They're cool to look at, but look at them from a distance, and in fact, just stay with us and we'll show you plenty of that this morning. Also, we've talked about schools this morning and various school delays and closures, and I know some schools have been trying to get classes in where they could. We've just learned that Del Mar College will be closing their campuses for the remainder of the day. The folks there deciding not to take any chances with safety. Now, the school was originally set to open at noon. However, they have just announced that that's not going to be happening today, and employees will continue to work remotely. Normal operations, they believe, will resume tomorrow. That's August the 23rd. But as for today, there's nothing going to be happening out at Del Mar College. And so if you're a student who was trying to figure out how to get there in the wind and the rain, go ahead and stay home and try again tomorrow. All right, let's go ahead and bring Carly Smith back in. And Carly, we want to talk about some of the things that are continuing to happen even now after this thing has made landfall.
Yeah, we are still seeing the winds really picking up, and they're more direct on our coastline now, and that's starting to increase that storm surge. So Lexus Green has been out at the Art Museum all morning long. Additionally, we have inside word that as of right now that there is no water making it inside. The Art Museum did prep with sandbags and so forth to prepare for this scenario, but remember that parking lot, the lower level parking lot that Lexus was standing on? It is now completely covered in water, and you cannot see that parking lot anymore. So that storm surge of 1 to 3 feet is now here. So we're seeing that inundation of up to 3 feet at this time. It is looking similar to what we have seen in the past, but essentially they are prepared with some sandbags and so forth at this time. 79 degrees right now. Can you believe that? So winds are out of the east-northeast at 32 miles per hour, but gusts are up to 62 miles per hour through Flower Bluff and Corpus Christi. So really strong gusts are in the area. As of right now, the National Weather Service is also working on drawing up a flash flood warning for Jim Wells and Duval County that will get you up to date with on the latest as well. But that peak storm surge, again, the forecast showed 1 to 3 feet. We're starting to see that really showing up now as our winds are continuing to be strong in the area. I know meteorologist Kristen Walla had some stuff that she was going to talk about. She's got more on winds and what we can continue to expect along our coast, but also inland as a storm continues to move to the west. Kristen.
Yeah, for sure. Here's a look at those wind speeds right now. Like you were talking about, they send a lot of water up onto the coastline. That's why we've got the coastal flood advisories in effect for the beach. And it also contributes to those higher waves and the longer wave periods. So there's the high rip current risk, but hopefully y'all are all tucked away at home, nice and safe and sound and dry, and not out at the beach trying to surf. Those winds getting up to 32 miles per hour now right here in Corpus Christi. We do have some tropical storm force winds now right there in that pocket. You can see the blue colors. However, here's a look at those wind gusts, like Carly said, up to 62 miles per hour. So very strong wind gusts on top of the already pretty breezy winds. So that is going to continue again to come across the coastal bend heading into the rest of this afternoon with that storm. The higher wind speeds follow that tropical storm across the state of Texas. So it's going to be very gusty here today, even into this evening. We're going to continue to see the rain chance in this evening. We do also have a new tornado warning that I'm seeing that I will try to pull up here real quickly. That was for, I'm trying to pull it up here.
We can shift
If we could pull Carly's mic up.
Too, while Kristen's working on that.
Yeah.
Several tornado warnings actually have now been issued. Benavidez is under a tornado warning till 11:45. We kind of mentioned some of these possible spin-ups less than 10-15 minutes ago. So we've got a tornado warning now at 11:40 till 11:45 a.m. also south of George West. So this is going to be where we're seeing this heavy rainfall. This is an area where we're getting an increase in wind. That shear is being created and a spin-up tornado is likely. So that's going to be 11:45. We're seeing this tornado warning that's in southern Live Oak County, just south of George West. And then we have another tornado warning that is going to be south of San Diego as it is approaching Benavidez. That rotation would be near where we're seeing the red. We'll take a look at velocity here in just a second. And Kristen, if you see anything you want to talk about, feel free to chime in whenever you want as well, and we can just switch back and forth. But we are seeing right here is where I would see this tornado. It would be moving toward Benavidez as well. So additionally, there is a new flash flood warning as well that does include all areas inland for Nueces County, Claiborne County, Jim Wells County, as well as into Duval County, and that's going to be until 2:15. But we'll take a look now at the velocity of these areas just south of George West. That's the strongest area of rotation that I've seen all morning as we're tracking these storms. That's going to be right there about to cross 281. So that rotation would be right here, and that's warning is until 11:45. So this warning is going to be for southwestern Live Oak County. We've got another one popping up. So yeah, 10 minutes ago we were saying we could see some tornado warnings here. This one near Beeville included in a tornado warning till 11:45. That looks like some broad rotation, I would say, on the south and eastern side of Beeville, right along 181 as well. This is going to be south of Beeville where that tornado would be, right between 202 and 181. So that would be right here is where we would see that rotation, and that is going to be moving toward the west as well. So this is a tornado warning again for east central Live Oak County and into central B County. More right now, the rotation is in B County, and there is that tornado, that area of rotation where we're seeing the green and the red. So essentially what that means is green is going to be showing winds going toward the radar. So this is north of our radar, so the winds would be going kind of more this way, and then the reds are going this way, but that's where we are seeing rotation, and that's this storm is closest to Beeville right now, this storm, but it is on the south side of town, again, between 202 and 181, right before where they meet, heading into Beeville. This storm is moving west at 45 miles per hour, so as we zoom out, we can kind of track where that possible rotation would be going with our storm track. And so I gotta adjust a couple of things and then we'll get that track going. And so that would take it away from Beeville toward Beeville's airport around 11:22, and then I'm not sure if I'm gonna say this city right, but Cadiz at 11:34. And then that's not the only tornado warning we've got. So now we're at the one south of George West. George West, you are not in the tornado warning, but this is about to cross 281. So anyone with property, ranch land, or so forth down there between Mount Lucas and Clegg is where we're going to see this go. And then it's going to cross 59 if it stays formed. And we'll check out the information on this tornado now, and it is moving southwest at 40 miles per hour. Again, these are not confirmed tornadoes, they're all radar indicated, and that's because we are seeing green, which indicates rotation going toward the radar, but also a little bit of speed shear. Now with the latest update, we lost that rotation couplet of the green and the red, but when you see the brighter red on top and the gray is essentially, that's really weak winds on the bottom. That's still that speed shear, which is how these tropical storm or tropical based tornadoes really start to form, is from speed shear. So this one, I believe I said is moving west at 40 miles per hour. So we could put a storm track on this one and show any areas that would potentially be impacted by this tornado or this radar indicated tornado. It's a messy couplet, but it is still there. And so that would have it moving toward Clegg and then Seven Sisters by 11:58. Looks like we still have this one. We're now approaching Benavides, right over Benavides, tornado warning for Benavides until 11:45. These typically have fairly light winds in relative speaking to tornadoes, but they're still strong winds. So I don't want to confuse you by saying that, but typically they're about 65 to around 100 mile per hour winds within these storms. There's another cell. We've got a lot of tornado warnings coming out. There's another cell now near Sinton that there it is. There's where that rotation is looking like it's going to be. You see the bright green and the gray. That's going to track straight towards Sinton as well. Not sure how fast this one is moving, so we'll put a storm track real quickly on this one that is going through Benavides. But if you do live in Benavides, it's best to take shelter. If there is a tornado or if there's about to be a tornado, it would be right over you. So stay inside if you're watching this. Don't go outside and try to look for the tornado. That is not safe to do, but we can check out how fast this tornado is going. This one going 35 miles per hour to the west. And so we'll put our storm track on that. Again, Sinton about to have a tornado warning issued for you as well. So if you're living in Sinton, go ahead and make sure you're inside. So Benavides, this is right at you. The high school, it'll be there a minute later, and then it will track away from Benavides, likely north of Rialto's, but that is where this is going to go. Track along 359 and then continue away from 359 toward Highway 16 there into the west. So I'm not sure if the one for Sinton has been issued. Okay, so we've got all the current issued tornado warnings. The one south of Beeville, looking fairly broad, but there may be kind of a secondary couplet trying to form on the backside of that one. There also looks like south of Goliad we could have one, but Sinton is one that the Weather Service is working on putting out a warning. Has not been put out yet, but you can see where that rotation would be is going to be, let's use this arrow with the arrowhead. So we have the really strong winds going this way and then some weaker winds kind of creating shear this way. And that's going to create that rotation that is tracking right toward the city of Sinton. When we are looking at some of the radar estimated wind speeds, now these are not going to be exact because they're not all at the surface level, but what we're going to see right here is our winds. So we'll see 39 estimated winds. Gate-to-gate shear, not overly impressive, but still, that's stronger shear likely, and then just some strong speed shear. So that shear that it's really checking out is going to be a rotational shear, and the speed shear is how these storms get started. And there we have it, this tornado warning now issued till noon for Sinton. Sinton is under a tornado warning again until noon. If you're just joining us, I'm meteorologist Carly Smith, and we have a tornado warning until noon for San Patricio County. It's going to include Sinton, Odom, West Sinton, San Patricio, Mathis, Sandia, all of these areas. Interstate 37 under this tornado warning. Mathis under this tornado warning. Again, these typically happen quickly. They're very fast. They're relatively weak when it comes to a tornado, but that will still be stronger wind speeds than we've seen all day if a tornado does develop. These are radar indicated tornadoes, so we're seeing rotation on radar. That does not confirm that there definitely is a tornado, but when we see a rotation, then we have an idea that a tornado could either form quickly or it has already formed. And it's really difficult to verify these tropical storm tornadoes because there's not going to be large debris being lofted up high into the atmosphere and so forth. Let me see how fast this one is moving so I could put a storm track on that. This one will be going west at 55 miles per hour. And so when we put the storm track on that one, we get it to 55. And then I'm going to zoom out so we can track it toward those other cities. This is a tornado warning that's really going to impact several cities potentially in the region. So that has it at Sinton at 1127, Mathis 1148, Edroy 1139, and Lake City at 1152, based on the radar estimated speed of movement of this tornado, and additionally the storm, the way that this is moving around the center of that tropical storm that we are dealing with. So we're going to zoom out. I'm going to go back to reflectivity as we kind of look at all of these and get an idea of all the tornado warnings that we are really covering right now. So I've got a tornado warning again that includes Sinton, Mathis, San Patricio, Odom, Sandia. Likely this will track from Sinton somewhere between Sandia and San Patricio. That is going to be until noon. The other warning is going to be just south of George West. Looks like it's crossing near Highway 59 right now. That will continue to track toward 16 and potentially toward Freer, but I think it would move north of Freer. Finally, or we have two more, I think. This one, Benavides, it would be now southwest of Benavides where the tornado would be. That's going to, this warning is until 11:45. It will likely track north of Rialitos, but likely going to stay north even though you are in the tornado warning there. And so I think that that's now all 4 of our tornado warnings. But these tropical storms, the outer bands, notorious for causing spin-up tornadoes, again, it is worth staying inside, which we should be anyway with these high winds and heavy rainfall that we have been seeing. These tornadoes tend to be fairly brief and relatively weak, but you might not say that if it hits your house and causes some damage to a shed or does end up breaking a window or so forth. So that is still a possibility with 65 to likely 110 mile per hour winds there within these tornadoes. And again, all of them, I believe, are radar estimated at this time. Still getting some warnings. One's for Goliad County now, which is outside of the coastal bend. But this is the point of the day we're at. We've got some daytime heating that's added to the fuel for the tornado potential. Severe weather loves heat, and we've got that going on. It loves moisture. We've got that going on. And it loves wind shear as well. So is there anything else, Kristen, that you want to add with these tornadoes? I do want to emphasize Sinton should be taking shelter. It is starting to move, it looks like now on the western side of town, but Sinton should be taking shelter. Benavides, I believe it's starting to pass to your south, but should be in shelter as well. Areas along 59, it looks like. George West, you're in the clear from a tornado at this time. Beeville, let me look at reflectivity one more time for the Beeville area. It looks west of Beeville, but I would say there is a little area to the northeast of Beeville that I would be slightly concerned with some rotation popping up there as well. So Beeville, I would stay inside right now as well, just to be on the safe side. Sinton moving through town right now as we speak. Latest radar scan now has it on the west side of Sinton. So we'll come back and check out all of these tornado warnings and see where that potential rotation is in just a second. But we'll now talk more. Tornadoes are not the only risk. We've got storm surge happening, Lexus, I believe, back out where we have seen the water continuing to rise there at the Art Museum. Corpus Christi Bay coming on shore now, Lexus. What are you seeing?
Hey Carly, thank you so much for those updates. We want to give you another live look down here by the Art Museum, a place notorious for the storm surge. As you guys are tuning in live right now, there is one of those gusty bands you've been mentioning. It is really, really blowing in right now, and there's actually a few cars who are, I don't know if you can see them in the parking lot, but they're coming to kind of check it out for themselves. It's definitely a sight to see the surge, the waves, they're crashing, they're filling the parking lot, but definitely avoid this area if possible. We just want to give you, kind of a visual of this tropical storm and, the impacts it has right here in the coastal bend. Now, there is a few cars going over the Harbor Bridge right now. If you do need to, use any bridge to commute, be sure to be safe, drive with caution. It's still very active out here, and be sure to stay with 3 News on air and online as we continue to bring you the latest.
All right, thanks for that, Lexus, down there by the
Mike?
Art Museum of South Texas, and we'll continue to check in with our crews, again, keeping them safe, but wanting to keep you updated. I do want to mention you were seeing with our meteorologists, and we do have our 3 News full weather team in the house right now tracking Harold for us, and as you saw, what they were seeing live, they were presenting to you, so there was no delay time. As it was coming up on maps, that's why you saw the movement of the maps, that's why you saw the different things they were drawing. As we're getting the information, we're giving it to you in order to do everything we can to make sure that you are updated and to make sure that you are safe. Now, part of that also includes talking about power outages. They continue to grow across the coastal bend. Here is the power outage map from AEP right now that you can pull up on your phone as well. Over 12,000 customers now without power. Taking a look at that map, you can see that they are just scattered all over the place. A lot of those appear to be coming from the south side of Corpus Christi, also some over on the west side. We've seen areas like Portland and Rockport, even down in Kingsville, lots of other spots. We're going to continue to monitor these power outages for you. Hopefully, those at some point will begin to go down, but you'll be able to see a lot of that. We've even had, I think, the lights flicker here in the studio a couple of times. So you never can tell when you're going to be caught by a power outage or when that may happen to come your way. Let's look at this video now sent in by viewer Maria Gomez, and if we can pull that up, you can see this is Aransas Pass, I believe, and there's a telephone pole that's sparking over there, and that reminds us again that you stay away from that kind of stuff. Don't go near it. If there's debris near it, don't go near the debris. Stay out of the water, certainly, but there's a lot of danger in those downed power lines, and we're going to see those. AEP will get to those as quickly as they can. They have crews in place to try to fix these things, to keep people safe and to restore power. But for now, just a reminder, if you see sparking poles, stay away from those, stay away from power lines. Also, we told you earlier that Del Mar College had canceled classes for the rest of the day. Originally, students were going to go in at noon. Now we're hearing from Texas A&M University. They have just announced that they're going to be extending their remote operations through the end of the day. So right now, no classes in session as the school is not going to start until next Monday. This notice, of course, is for all employees who work at the university. You continue to do that remotely from your home. And again, stay out of this weather. Let us continue to track the storm for you. We want to take a quick break, and then we're back with more coming up.
Placement of it.
If you want to.
Yeah.
Welcome back. We're continuing to track Tropical Storm Harold. Some of you may be hearing the rain in your area as we're hearing it here at our studios along SPID, not far from La Palmera Mall. Some of you, again, either have or could be looking at power outages, and we want to remind you that if that happens to you, be sure to pull up our 3 News app. You can check out on your phone all of the updates and the information that we're giving you at this point. I also mentioned earlier that our entire 3 News weather team is in the house making for a crowded weather center, but we want to go over there and turn on the microphone for Kristen Walla. And Kristen, if you can, give us an idea of what we're looking at there.
Yeah, Mike, we've got multiple tornado warnings out in effect for areas around the coastal bend on top of a couple of flash flood warnings. So I want to start off with the radar and then I'll get into the tornado warnings. You can see that center of circulation moving through Kennedy County, now down into Brooks County at this time, just to the south of Falfurrias. That's where the center is of this storm, right in there. So here's a look at the radar velocity scan. So this is what we're looking at for those tornado warnings, and I'm going to change it to a different color there so you can see it just a little bit better. So I'm going to start off with this one out here towards Duval County. This tornado warning going until 11:45 for the southwestern side of Duval County. So this is moving at 40 miles per hour to the southwest. So if you bear with me, I will draw that on here. I've got to set my little clicker thing here up. So at 40 miles per hour to the south, you can expect it to be at 12:05 in, forgive me if I say this wrong, Bruni. That is where that one is tracking towards. Now I'm going to clear my map off here and we're going to jump over to the next warning up towards Sinton and over towards Mathis. So this looks like a different kind of box a little bit, and that one you can see as well the rotation coming around in these little spurts. You can see them kind of track across the screen there. I'm trying to find a little pointer. There we go. You can kind of watch them go across right there. That was the one that went over into Duval County, and then now I'll track this one coming into Sinton. Right there you can see where we have the green and the red, especially the bright colors right next to one another. That's where we're seeing the rotation in the sky. So this is how we see that. The red is away from, I believe the red and green are away and towards the radar. So we've got that in Sinton, and that one is moving at 55 miles per hour. So moving quite a bit quicker, and they're being flung around the side of this tropical storm. So they are moving pretty quickly here across, and it's moving this way with the warning. So you can expect that. Here's those estimated arrival times a little bit to the west of Sinton already, where that rotation is. Pulling out my pointer, you can see right here, that's where the rotation is right now, right there where the green and red kind of meet. And that is going to move over this way towards Orange Grove. We can expect that over there in about the next 20 minutes or so, if this is able to hold together. These spin-ups with tropical systems are usually pretty short-lived. They can form very easy, so we're going to keep our eye on those. There's also one just to our north towards Goliad, as well as over towards Beeville. You can also continue to see some of that green and red right next to one another. This is moving west at 45 miles per hour, so kind of in between the other two. So let's track that one out for you. You can see it's not as tight of a circulation compared to the other two, but here's what we've got. George West in the next 15 to 20 minutes or so. That could be over in y'all's neck of the woods. So I'm going to clear this off and go back to my wide view here, if I can get my computer to cooperate. There we go. So you can see all those little circulations kind of spinning around with the main system here. Oh, my computer just went kaput for a sec here. I'll reload it, and it's probably just stuck on your screen, but mine is reloading at this time. You can see, there we go, the spin coming back up. You've got all of these little spinnies coming across, for lack of a better term, that you can track into where these tornado warnings are. So you can see the one that came from here. I'll track it backwards. You can see it, there it comes. So that's what we're watching, is these little brief spin-ups coming around the tropical system. So like I said, these tend to be on the weaker side in a tropical cyclone, like a tropical storm, depression, what have you. They tend to be brief, weak, isolated, and they're found in those outside feeder bands of rain, like we're seeing coming across our northern counties, where we are currently finding those tornado warnings. And typically these are on the weaker side of that EF enhanced Fujita scale, an EF 0 to an EF 1. So anywhere from 65 to 110 miles per hour are usually what we see with these little spin-ups. And these are definitely not the first tornado warnings we've seen of the day. They are far from it, unfortunately. So if you are in one of those areas with the tornado warnings, like over towards Duval County, make sure that you are taking shelter.
If we can pull up my microphone, I don't know if y'all can hear me.
Yes.
Or if,
All right,
there we
you're
go.
up.
Okay, so something I wanted to note is now the Sinton storm, that rotation has become very broad, and they did cancel that warning. So the one that's tracking between Sinton and Sandia, again, rotation not being as tight and obvious, and so that warning has been canceled. Additionally, it looks like we're still tracking some activity near Benavides, but that warning, let's see, we may have to turn on a different radar to kind of get it. It's kind of in that weird dead zone, but that one still up till 11:45, but rotation is not as obvious there west of Benavides either. But I just wanted to come on real quickly to mention that the Sinton warning has been either allowed to expire or be canceled. So if there's more that you wanted to say, Kristen, what you're seeing, then we can always go back to you. Chime in anytime. That's how severe weather coverage happens, is people chiming in, and we're following back and forth on each other. But that's basically what I just was noticing or saw while we were talking about how those storms or how tornadoes form in tropical bands. And so essentially that's going to continue to be a risk as long as we are under the outer bands of this storm. We're going to see the risk for tornadoes, especially across those northern areas, but even through Corpus Christi, where we're getting now, so it's kind of off and on heavy rainfall. It's starting to lighten up a bit. Wow, I can't believe I'm saying that, but that's not the case through Alice, Kingsville. You're starting to lighten up a bit, but you are still seeing some feeder bands that will keep some off and on rainfall in the area. But the heaviest rainfall is now pushing through Alice, Kingsville, Orange Grove. And something that we briefly kind of mentioned during all that tornado coverage is there is now another flash flood warning that has been issued. That includes Jim Wells County, San Patricio County, Clayburgh County, as well as just the far kind of edge of Duval County. As this continues to move inland, I believe probably some sort of a flash flood warning or flood alert may be issued for the rest of Duval County. But for now, we do still have those tornado warnings. It does look like they've extended now the one to the north there into B County, and that's been extended into Live Oak County. I think we're having some power flashes all the time in the station just to emphasize how strong those winds are out there. Thankfully, our weather computers are set up to handle it, but here we are seeing where that heavy rain is now moving toward Three Rivers. So Three Rivers, I would be prepared for a possible tornado. We have no confirmed reports of tornadoes. These are just radar indicated tornadoes that we are seeing here on our velocity. But overall, this system starting to really push to the north there. Something I also want to mention, Kennedy County, you're seeing the end to the rain. You've had the brunt of a lot of this. Wind speeds, we don't have great wind speed sites along Kennedy County, but some of the strongest wind speeds there. Kingsville, probably seeing some pretty strong wind speeds. We'll take a look at that graphic now. But as you can see, 55-mile-per-hour wind gusts in Kingsville, still 61-mile-per-hour wind gusts at Flower Bluff, 40 miles per hour Port Aransas, 53 Corpus Christi. So winds still possibly likely causing some power outages. I don't know if on the news side we have any updates there with the power outages that we want to get to or mention, but I wouldn't be surprised if we're still adding more of those with 61-mile-per-hour speeds. Winds sustained at 41 miles per hour at the Naval Air Station. So that is essentially tropical storm force winds there. 55 miles per hour. Kingsville is your gust sustained near tropical storm force at 35 miles per hour. So that is what we are looking at. Rainfall totals. Let's check those out because it has been a while, especially since we do have now an additional flash flood warning that as the system continues to move inland. So you can see all the rain that has fallen across Nueces County, Clayburgh County, and into Kennedy County. That's moving into Jim Wells County and Duval County. So that's why we have continued to add that flash flood warning. Let me get rid of the tropical storm warning. I changed that palette, and I should not have for this reason because it just keeps popping up. But again, we are still under that tropical storm warning, which means those tropical storm force winds, like we are still seeing at the Naval Air Station, are possible throughout the day today. We will see them eventually lighten as it continues to track further inland. But right now, I just wanted to show some of those estimated rainfall totals across the area where Kennedy, oh, that's the wrong, we're going to see the warning. That's why I don't have it saved on that graphic. But essentially, flash flood warnings continuing for Corpus Christi, but we're starting to see the rain become a bit more off and on. But the heavy rainfall, the persistent rainfall is now shifting gears toward Jim Wells County where that flash flood warning is. And as you can see, the pinks and purples are 2 to 3 inches of rainfall that have fallen. That's what's moving toward Alice, between Alice and Falfurrias especially, possibly even Orange Grove, that northern Jim Wells County seeing some pockets of the heavier rain as well. Mike, do you have any updates, I think, on maybe some of those power outages that we've been seeing?
We do have that. You mentioned that, and you also mentioned that we see some of that here in the station with the lights flickering on and off, but we are going to stay on the air and we will continue to bring you these updates. But unfortunately, power outages across the coastal bend continue to climb. In fact, right now, the AEP website is showing 17,000, nearly 17,000 customers without power. It wasn't an hour ago that we were at about half of that. There's a live look at the AEP outage map, and we keep an eye on that. And you see that it's just coming from all over the place with the red and the green areas there. You see some, of course, across Corpus Christi. There are some in Rockport, Kingsville, Portland, just all over the place. We're going to continue to monitor those. Remember, AEP told us earlier that they have moved crews into place in the Corpus Christi area and in points south, and they are going to do everything they can to have power restored just as soon as possible. In the meantime, though, you are reminded to do whatever you need to do to stay safe if you lose power at your house, and hopefully to be patient. Nearly 17,000 customers, a lot of folks, are going to need to have their power restored, and hopefully if that's something happening in your neighborhood, it'll come back quickly. Now, all morning we've been showing you different pictures from radar images, but these are some of the pictures you've sent us. This appears to be a utility pole there that is sparking. If you watch, you can see the sparks there. That's probably more common than you think. That happens across the area when you see the rain and the wind like this. Viewer Maria Gomez sent that to us out of Aransas Pass this morning. If you do happen to see that, AEP says stay away from downed power lines. If you happen to come across those, you don't want to be messing with that. Closer to home this morning along Shoreline, we're going to show you some videos sent in by Ricky Jones. Now, he shows us a different view maybe than you've seen of the Art Museum of South Texas, where Waves are surging onto the dock there. We've seen that happen before. Those waters looking rough as Harold continues to push its way on through this part of the coastal bend. And then over on Baylark Drive in SPID, we have a viewer who tells us that their fence was taken down by the storm. And that reminds you of some of the power of the winds here as the wind picked up in their neighborhood and a whole lot of others. We expect that as this pushes through and as the afternoon goes on, that we are going to get more reports of damage and of things that people are going to have to go out there and take care of and clean up. Hopefully, though, that is minimized as you were preparing for the storm and as you were able to tie up and put away any loose furniture or things that may be flying around. We do want to see your weather pictures and videos. Remember, you can text it all to us, 361-855-6397. If you do that, be sure to include a description of where you are, what you're seeing, and any other details that you believe are relevant. And of course, we'll try to use some of those on the air. Now, we do have crews and have had crews out all morning across different parts of the coastal bend. We want to bring Simone Simpson back in. And Simone, I've seen you out by Bob Hall Pier. I've seen you with driving rain and wind. I've seen you in your car. Give us an update as to where you are now.
Hey Mike, yes, it's been a very wet morning, but right now we've settled in North Padre Island. I'm right here in front of our hotel's parking lot. Things appear to be much clearer than they were. Obviously, I think the harshest weather conditions was at the former Bob Hall Pier structure. But I want you to turn to your right here because I want us to take a look at the streets. The roads are very slippery, and so that makes it to where it's easier for cars to slip if you're not careful. Of course, we've been advising you all morning to not be on the roads at all. But if you have to pick up your kids from school or something like that, please use extra precaution. And also keep in mind, if there are other drivers on the road, make sure you leave enough car space in between you all just in case there has to be a sudden stop. I heard Mike and Carly talk about flash flood warnings. You want to be aware of that as well if you have to go outside. Mike, I'm going to send it back to you.
And of course, we were talking earlier with Ricky Daly, and he was reiterating a lot of that, Simone. And again, things appear to be calmer where you are right now. Are you seeing people starting to come out and take a look at what's going on over there?
Mike, the only people that we've been seeing are people coming out of the hotel and leaving because, like I mentioned before, our hotel has run out of power. But I haven't been seeing people wanting to see, what the environment, what the weather is looking like. I think they could hear it on their window pane, and I think they've been seeing our coverage, Mike.
Well, hopefully that has helped our viewers this morning as they have stayed with us. And again, they have seen all the different conditions that you have been in throughout the morning, which has really been a great visual for us as to how this storm has passed. So thank you for that, Simone. And we'll check in with her again later if we need to. And of course, we do have crews checking on other parts of the coastal bend, and we'll have some updates there. We do want to go back to our meteorologists. They have been the stars of the morning as they have been giving us the most accurate and up-to-date things associated with this storm. And Carly, you were talking about earlier that it looked like some areas were starting to see maybe a little bit of relief.
Yeah, a little bit of a break from the rain. It is going to start to lighten up along the coast. We're still getting some of those feeder bands, but as we take the radar live now, you can really see what we're dealing with. Now, while areas along the coast may start to see a break, areas inland, it's only just beginning. So if I can walk to the wall and try to do some of this radar analysis there so I can use my hands and point stuff out. Right now, what we are looking at is going going to be that a lot of rain, a feeder band still dumping rainfall across Nueces County. I kind of mentioned that when I was tracking this about an hour or so ago, that I expected those feeder bands to go right along Corpus Christi Bay, and that's exactly what we're seeing. So while we're starting to see the rain clear out through Claiborne County and into Kennedy County, still dealing with some strong winds down there, but the rain is clearing out, we still have those feeder bands dumping rainfall, adding to our rainfall totals, which we need the rain to help with our droughts. If we could get this, it's a good thing, honestly, that the storm has shifted further north, because we're getting more rain in portions of our watershed now, even up toward George West and Beeville, Mathis, Lake Corpus Christi. So, of course, it's working out in terms of rainfall, but of course that comes with all the hazards, the flash flooding and the tornado warnings that we're also seeing. So we still have tornado warnings. There's a new one that has been issued for McMullen County, just north of Freer. This is mostly over the country, ranch land and so forth, but we do have that tornado warning until 12:30. That's in that area. We also still have between Beeville and George West a tornado warning there, but here's a closer look at all of that rain that's moving through Padre Island. We are still seeing a feeder band, it looks like, on the south side of where a lot of those houses are. So right here is going to be the Packery Channel jetty, and you can see the rain starting to break up, but we've got a feeder band just to the south of there where a lot of people live on Padre Island that we're going to continue to see rain. Port Aransas, there's another band that is going to come for areas through Flower Bluff eventually. Port Aransas starting to see a little bit of a break, but we do still have some isolated activity off and on rain that's going to continue through those northern areas as well. Rockport seeing much lighter rain. But now for those tornado warnings, here's a closer look. The tornado warning, we're seeing that heavy rainfall right here. That's where we're going to see the most energy. And so with that tornado warning, that's until 12:30. You can see it coming in and then kind of spinning as remember, this whole system is spinning as a tropical storm. So that in itself is creating some shear at the surface, and that's how we're getting these spin up tornadoes. So you can see that circulation right here. Again, this is mostly over open land, country, ranch lands, but it is going to cross over Texas Highway 16 and continue to move to the west there. The one that I'm really focusing on may impact Three Rivers if it does hold up. So this is going to be a tornado warning until 12:30, and this right here, that's going to be the circulation. You can see the brighter red, that's going away from the radar. Then the lighter color, that's weaker winds. So we're going to have those strong winds pushing away from the radar, and then the weaker winds not pushing as hard, that still is creating enough shear to possibly get a tornado going. Again, none of these are confirmed tornadoes. They're only radar indicated, and they are typically weak tornadoes that are typically EF0, EF1, so that's 110 mile per hour wind speeds, but we won't know what any of these tornadoes or potential tornadoes are rated until wind damage could be assessed by the National Weather Service after the fact, right? But Three Rivers, this is an area I would say definitely make sure you're inside with this potential tornado, tracking that direction. The times here are still going to be accurate because at the time I made it, the rotation was further back. So I just want to emphasize that. But it looks like 12:14 is the estimated time of arrival there for Three Rivers, and it will continue to move to the west and then eventually a little bit to the southwest. But even a lightning strike showing up there indicating how strong that storm is there into the outer bands of the system. But persistent, moderate to heavy rainfall continuing to push through Jim Wells County, entering Duval County. You're going to see rainfall totals 1 to 2 inches per hour is what it was as it moved through Nueces County. That's what you're dealing with now, and that's why there is that flash flood warning that is in place for Jim Wells County and Duval County as well. Looking at those rainfall totals, we've seen 2 to 4 inches radar estimated. that's going to continue. So we're expecting at least 1 to 2 inches of additional rainfall across Jim Wells County and into Duval County. So that would add 2 to 3 inches of rain for most of that area. So because the storm shifted a little north, originally when we thought it was going further south, we kept the 2 to 4 for Clayburgh County, but now we pushed it north where we are seeing Nueces County now into that 2 to 4 and even southern portions of San Patricio County that we are seeing. So that's the latest look at our estimated rainfall totals, our flood warnings, and now we're going to toss things over to meteorologist Kristen Walla and her max weather computer. We've got 2 computers going so we can bring you up to date on all the latest information. Oh, and by the way, Chief Meteorologist Alan Holt working on that hot forecast that's coming up at the end of the week.
Definitely. Thanks, Carly. So we still have those 3 tornado warnings out in effect. The one for McMullen in the very northern tip of Duval County over into Live Oak and Bee County, and the one up towards Goliad. But I also wanted to point out the circulation near Orange Grove, it doesn't have a tornado warning on it just yet. And I just got a notification the eastern half of that warning for Bee County has been canceled. Now you can see that circulation is moving over into Live Oak County at this time. But back towards this one here in Orange Grove, there's not a warning on it just yet. So we are going to continue to watch this. You can see those different colors towards and away from the radar that we show you all the time. That's the couplet there where you get, even if it's not the green, at least the grayish color and the bright red there, that is indicating the circulation around this area. I'm going to pause that so you can see that's kind of the towards and away from the radar that I'm seeing right here. So again, not a warning out for this just yet, but we are going to continue to watch that one for y'all. Now let's go around the rest of the coastal bend to those other tornado warnings. That couplet over towards Duval and McMullen County still pretty strong. You can see the, again, bright red next to the grayish color indicating that rotation there. So let's take a look. This one is moving to the west at 40 miles per hour. It's just radar indicated rotation at this point. So again, no tornado confirmed on this cell just yet, but we're going to track it just to its west. You can see not looking like any cities popping up on my tracker here, but again, that one moving at 40 miles per hour to the west. And I'll pull my radar back up. You can see here's a look at the current tornado warnings. And there goes one for that circulation I just mentioned in Orange Grove. That just popped up here new on our radar. And I will go back to that one here. You can see it now loading on my computer. The area just to, I believe, the northeast or east of Orange Grove, that tornado warning has now been issued. Yes, there it is. That is going to go until 12:30, and this is for just radar indicated circulation. It's not a confirmed tornado again, but this is what we've been seeing all morning, these little spin ups as those rain bands come around our coastal bend and around on the radar. So that's what we're continuing to see. All the little areas that have these bright colors right next to the darker colors, that's where we're getting these tornado warnings from. So not only that do we have the tornado warnings across the coastal bend, we've also got, there's the tornado warnings, we also have flash flood warnings. Those are in effect until 1:30 or until 2:15 now for our western counties, and the one for our eastern counties, including Nueces, that one is set to expire here in about 45 minutes. So checking over on our radar right now, again, lots of activity going on here. You can see that circulation continuing across the southern part of the coastal bend. My apologies, my computer keeps freezing. It has been on for quite some time this morning. So we've got the bulk of that rain now moving on to our western counties. So y'all are going to pick up a good drink of water there. But again, we've got tornado warnings across our northern counties where those feeder bands are finally making their way around. And speaking of the feeder bands, here's one training across the Nueces County, Clayburgh County line. So we're continuing to see these heavy rainfall rates, and we'll take a look in just a second at some of those rainfall estimates. If I can find my graphic here, we have seen multiple inches of rain across the the coastal bend. Here's totals as of not too long ago that this is a manually updating, but the colors are the radar estimated. So the numbers are going to be the actual reported totals as of about 1 hour ago, and then the radar estimated is the colors here. So you can see multiple inches of rain have already fallen on Corpus Christi, over towards Bishop, and even into Falfurrias. By now they've probably picked up over an inch of rain, and we're going to continue to see this heavy rain. So that's why we've got those flash flood warnings in effect for some of our southern counties. So here's where those are again, pulling it up. We've got that flash flood warning in effect for Jim Wells, Nueces, part of San Patricio and Clayburgh County, as well as into the western side of Duval County. Now this does include the islands, and on top of that again we have these tornado warnings. So the weather is a little bit of a mess this morning with the Tropical Storm Harold moving across to the south of the coastal bend. You can see that center of circulation right here on the radar. As it moves across, you can see the greens and reds changing. And then we also have those little spin-ups kind of coming around in these feeder bands. You can see the one right there for that warning for Duval County and McMullen County. And then up here you could see the ones coming across into B County. So we'll zoom in on these one more time. Here's the circulation in Orange Grove. It doesn't look quite as strong as it did not too long ago. So that means that the circulation is a little bit weaker, if not just farther away from the radar. So it's seeing a little bit higher up, but we'll continue to track that one for you. That warning goes until 12:30. The one over for Duval County and McMullen County also lasting until 12:30, but that couplet again looking a little bit stronger. And then the one up towards Live Oak County, I don't believe was confirmed. I believe they were all radar indicated. But again, lasting until 12:30. So we've got multiple tornado warnings around the coastal bend right now. But on top of that, on top of the rain, it is also very, very windy here in the coastal bend. So you can see that circulation moving around Kingsville and into Falfurrias. You can see that circular wind field. That's kind of where the circulation is centered right now, and it's going to continue to track westward through the coastal bend, through the southern coastal bend over the next few hours. 36-mile-per-hour winds here in Corpus Christi. So all of the green on this map is tropical depression strength wind, so that goes up to 38 miles per hour. But if we go to our wind gusts, we have gusts up to almost 60 miles per hour in Corpus Christi. So very windy right now outside. This is a different color palette, but it'll show the same thing. Here's our highest wind speeds recorded today: 62 miles per hour in Corpus Christi at the airport, 63 at the Naval Air Station, where they're closer to the water, there's less friction there. So that's where we have so far been finding our highest winds, is right along the coastline. So let's push our wind gust forecast to about noon right now. This is exactly what we're experiencing, though I would say the futurecast is off just a little bit. I'd take these higher gusts and shift them to the east just a little bit, but still very gusty across the coastal bend even into this afternoon. So it's going to be very, very breezy and very rainy until the next couple of hours, when we'll finally start to see a little bit of a break in the rain. And I'll find my futurecast here in my graphics. We're gonna show that to you here in just a second. My future. Okay, Carly, if you want to take your futurecast, that would be perfect.
Hi, Coastal Bend. Yeah, so I have Futurecast. Right now behind me is the current winds, which Kristen was showing, but taking a look at how we're going to continue to see it. So I started this a little early, so that was 9 a.m. As we're now in the 12 o'clock hour, I would say this Futurecast is a little bit early or late rather. So I would back it up a little bit and say this is kind of what we're currently experiencing now, and then we're going to continue to see some of those feeder bands a little bit further to the north, and then we will continue to see some feeder bands, I would say, through 3:30 until we finally start to see some of this activity becoming a bit more isolated after 3:30. So by 4 o'clock, a lot of this will be inland. Island, and still I would say it is again a little fast. So I would say at 4 o'clock, George West to Hebronville still dealing with some rain, but then we will see a lot of this taper off. There is an end in sight, Mike Allen.
All right, thank you for that, Carly. Just kind of resetting here just a bit. A lot of folks, Alan, may have woken up this morning and said, well, it looked like it rained, but I sure don't see a storm. That thing came in maybe a little later than some folks were expecting.
Slower.
Yeah, a little slower. But when it hit, it came with the force that we were expecting and that we were talking about. Well, let me say this, though. Thank you to Carly and Kristen for being here throughout the morning. They were here before daylight.
Yeah.
You have been in for the last few hours.
This morning, 1 a.m. or so, when the storm developed, I was here with Carly. We were kind of trading off shifts there. We have to overlap, you know, and we got to sleep too. So Carly's probably super tired with all of that coverage, impressive stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, the storm, we were talking about it at 1 o'clock this morning, because some of the higher resolution data had a much farther south track, and then that was kind of reflected in the forecast cone that was then reissued. But that storm center jumped a little bit farther north as it was starting to get its act together closer to the coast. And now with that shift, it has put us in line for those impacts that we had been advertising here for the last week. We've been all over this thing, and I think it's actually overperforming. We're seeing gusts 50 to 60 miles per hour in parts of the coastal bend, including in Corpus Christi and Flower Bluff. We're seeing the tornadic activity that can sometimes accompany these things, and I think the biggest thing is the rainfall. We are getting a quenching of rain here in a badly needed part of the world for rain, and we're in a big drought, and this is definitely going to help. So,
well, and one of the things that we've tried to remind folks is when you haven't had rain for a long time and you get this much, it can also bring some safety issues with that.
Yeah, there are going to be some. Corpus Christi notorious. We could sometimes get a sea breeze shower, drop an inch of rain, and you got some flooding issues on the streets. But I think if we are going to see the ponded water, it's mainly going to be on roadways or areas with poor drainage. If it's falling in a field, I think a lot of this is going to get soaked up, and then we may start to see some ponding in more of a natural habitat type of area. But a live look out at SPID, see traffic is flowing, maybe not as heartily as it would be on a lunchtime hour on a Tuesday afternoon, but people are aware of it. I think most are prepared, and this is kind of what the doctor ordered, Mike. We needed rain, we didn't want the wind, and that's kind of what we're getting. It is a little bit dicey at times with the wind and the tornadoes, but you know, we're getting sorely needed rain for sure.
Well, we want to mention to folks here again, for anybody who may have just joined us recently, we've been watching this thing as it came ashore, as it moved through particularly Nueces County and parts south. It's really been our western counties, though, that are now kind of seeing what Corpus Christi in our area saw earlier.
And so they're getting the shield of rain. A lot of the rain on this storm, you see it behind me, is falling north of center. The valley actually is getting kind of missed by this thing. And we're getting some shear that was coming in from the south, and that's displacing some of the rain north of center. So we are the beneficiary of that. And a lot of times when you have a tropical storm like this, you'll have a clean side and a dirty side, and we're on that quote unquote dirty side, where that rain on the right front quadrant of center with respect to forward movement is falling. We still have the tornado warnings that are up and posted for parts of central Live Oak County and the northwestern fringe of Duval County. Those are going to expire in less than 20 minutes at 12:30. And these tornado warnings, this is the Weather Service being extra cautious. These are radar indicated, they're not confirmed. So what they're saying is that, hey, we're seeing rotation within these cells, and it's possible that some of that rotation may briefly touch down. But these are kind of like Morse code. If they do, they do, 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 do. Kind of, they're not a long-lasting, long-track, you know, what you would see in the Central Plains. They're very brief, isolated, and they tend to be lower on the EF scale.
And still a reminder to folks that if you see those kind of warnings, probably there's some precautions that you need to take. Right?
You know, if you do get under one, and let's say the kids are home from school, you're home from work, what I like to say in this type of scenario is maybe it can be scary. You know, you get your alert, oh my gosh, tornado warning. Build a little fort with blankets and a pillow, like in an interior room, you know, and maybe watch Channel 3, watch the coverage on your phone, and you're going to be safe. You're not going to be in harm's way if you're in that interior part of your home. Don't want to be by windows. If maybe a tree branch falls and it cracks a window and maybe you get some wind in, you don't want to be near that. So if you are under one of those warnings, the best advice is to get into an interior room away from any windows in your home.
Let me ask you this, because we were at one point early on talking about how maybe this would move in and be cleared out by mid-morning. I don't know, that was one of the optimistic things. Are we now looking at this continuing? I mean, how late today and even into tomorrow are we going to be dealing with this kind of
tomorrow, no issues. It's going to be long gone. But for Corpus Christi, the winds are still going to be somewhat breezy through the afternoon. I think we're kind of at the apex of where the winds are going to be in terms of the strongest. On the radar, you see behind us the feeder bands that are coming in. That's going to be something that we'll have to deal with, I think, for the next several hours at least. But the farther west and away from the coast it gets, the weaker it's going to get, and the lower the influence it'll have on the coastal bend here, specifically Corpus Christi. But a lot of rain headed out right now into Duval County. You can see on the screen behind us how that circulation has moved in. It's right over, it looks like northern Brooks County, where that flood advisory white line is. It's just kind of serendipitous that it's pointing right to the center of circulation. But that area is also under a flood advisory for the rains that are falling. We're probably seeing rainfall rates, Mike, about 1 to 2 inches per hour with this. When you have tropical downpours like this, it doesn't take long to start to tally up those totals pretty quickly.
You know, we of course have had crews out in this, and it's been interesting because we've kind of seen the genesis of the storm with crews who were out with not a lot going on out at the beach in the areas, you know, that we were at, to all of a sudden the heavy downpours, and especially down by the art museum. And you were seeing a lot of that earlier as well. We're taking a look at that right now, but the way that the waves were coming up over the dock area there, it was just kind of reminiscent of other things that we've seen there whenever we get this kind of heavy rain.
It doesn't look there are some waves lapping up over the barge dock. I did get video from Ricky Jones. I posted that to our page. I think we have that in-house too. But I was looking at the tide gauge at the Texas State Aquarium, and it is on the rise right now, but it's still less than 1.5 feet above where it typically is. And this is that video. This is from the Art Museum of South Texas. We were just looking from the Lex Cam at this exact area, and you can see that those little yellow pylons, that's so you don't drive into the Gulf. You know, so the water's coming in, well, not the Gulf, the Corpus Christi Bay, but the water's definitely lapping up over the top of that little barrier there.
What are we, I know we've had a lot of schools that delayed today. Unfortunately, they chose, because of timing, we're opening just as a lot of this was really hitting here in our area. Other schools closed completely. If there are still schools with students, and there are, and they're going to be letting them out this afternoon, what kind of potential dangers are we looking at? Or really, by the time school lets out, are we just going to be dealing with a lot more of this rain, or will it be tapering off in our area?
So the coverage in terms of just the big picture, we're not going to see as much as you're seeing right now on the radar. The big shield of rain is going to move to the west. There is still going to be the possibility of those feeder bands coming in, and wherever those set up, there will be heavy rain and the possibility of localized flooding. Those feeder bands can drop. They don't look impressive, but because they're moving over the same locations over and over and over and over, they don't tend to move a whole lot. You can pile up water very quickly. So if someone is at school right now, maybe the parents are watching from home, you've got to go pick up your children from school. The number one thing I would be watching out for is if you're very familiar with the drive, if something looks different, water typically is where it is not. I'd be very cautious of that. If you come up to something like that, take it easy on the roads, especially if it's a rural area. I know the farmland, when you get out toward Chapman Ranch, you get farther inland into the brush country, there's not a whole lot of rolling hills, so you can get water piling up and it can just kind of drift over a roadway. It's not going to be like a violent rushing of water, but enough to maybe stall a vehicle out. So you've just got to be vigilant of it. And the old quip, turn around, don't drown, applies.
It
in
applies
this
here.
situation.
And as you said, you don't know what's underneath that water. Could be debris, could be a newly created pothole. You just can't tell. So stay out of that. We have not let her go yet. So I want to go one more time back to meteorologist Carly Smith. And maybe, Carly, kind of give us an update or your wrap-up thoughts on what we've been seeing this morning. I know you have been involved in every aspect of this coverage.
Yeah, it's been really crazy. My 12-hour shift now coming to an end. I just want to say, thanks for sticking with us as we went through this tropical storm. Just listening to Alan, I was like, wow, he's so calming in this situation. I feel like growing up in severe weather, heart of Dallas, I'm like, tornado, tornado, tornado. I do tend to get excited about that, but they are relatively fairly weak, and Alan did a great job at describing that. So that's one of my takeaways, is just thinking about tone and how you cover stuff, but also the way the storm moved north. All of our forecasts yesterday pointed toward right south of Baffin Bay being where landfall would be, and then it stayed south all morning long. It developed as a tropical storm south, and then it did do that jump to the north as it kind of tried to get organized, but it just couldn't. I mean, I think one of the signs, and maybe Alan, you could add in when I toss back to you, is, there was wind shear in the Gulf also, and that's why it's the dirty side, to the north as well. That's also typically the stronger side, though, just noting that it is that right forward flank quadrant of the storm. But it is fascinating to think, everything was to the north, so it just, as it's trying to develop, it's still getting into that energy to the north. But regardless, definitely has been an event. We're still dealing with the rain and the flooding risk, of course, but thanks for sticking with us all morning long as we stayed on air and continued this coverage. Mike, and now Alan, as he continues this coverage throughout the rest of the afternoon.
The time, Kristen's here too. It's not the most damaging or destructive system we've ever had rolled through here, but it just speaks to the dedication of the staff that we have here. Kristen was actually out of town. She came back in just to be a part of this. Carly came in really early this morning, and we just all want to be here when things are happening. Unfortunately, we need this thing. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's called sleep. So some people got to take that, and we've got to all get our rest so we can be our best when we are on the air. So,
well, the strength of the 3 News weather team certainly has shown up in this, and as Carly was mentioning, nothing here to panic about, but a lot to just be aware of.
Yeah, there's a ton. I mean, it's a lot of mental weight to be trying to go through all of the things that these storms are capable of doing. Again, we still have those tornado warnings. It looks like the one that's now moving to McMullen County has been extended just a little bit until 12:45. That's moving toward Tilden. That's not in our viewing area. But these tornado warnings, we saw this happen with Hannah. They were everywhere, but we didn't have a whole lot of reports of actual touchdowns. The Weather Service, though, is seeing the rotation. We are seeing the rotation, and you have to acknowledge it. When you see that on radar, we know it's possible that these things can briefly touch down. So that's why you're seeing these warnings pop up, and they typically happen away from the center of where a storm is. So the tornado warnings, they're going to be possible probably for the next several hours, maybe till about 2 or 3 o'clock. As the center starts to get farther away, those warnings will move farther away from us, more interior parts of Texas. But I'm going to have to get off of the desk because we have 2 weather computers. And you know, we've got 3 people here, so I've got to go in, load up my graphics, and kind of get my bearings with exactly how everything's moving around. But you know, I am happy we got rain. I am happy that we have some rain here. We definitely need it. And to those of you that fertilized your lawn over the weekend, you're welcome. I'm going to go check out the...
All right, Alan, you go look at that. We will keep it here. Again, we are tracking the flash flood warnings, the tornado warnings in the area, and we're going to stay here with you as long as we're seeing those in order to just keep you apprised of anything that you may need to know in order to keep you safe. As Alan mentioned, we did get a lot of rain. We'll be updating those rainfall totals. Hopefully, though, a lot of rain without much damage. That's going to be key here, is that while this moved through and while there were things to be concerned about with the high wind and the rain, hopefully not a lot of damage. We have seen some viewer video of fallen fences. We've talked a little bit about sparking utility poles and what to do if you see downed power lines. But again, as this has moved through Nueces County and heads off to the west, we want to, I think my producer's talking to me. Okay, let's go back to this then. As this has moved through the area, we've tried to just keep you updated so that you can see what it is that's happening out there and make your best decisions. Now, you know, we talked about earlier some of the school closures that were happening this morning. All 4 school districts in Clayburgh County, of course, closed today because of the weather. You're talking about places like Kingsville and Ricardo and Rivera and Santa Gertrudis ISDs. That's about 4,700 students that are going to be out of class because of that. We also learned as we were on the air here that Del Mar College closed their campuses for the remainder today. Originally, the school was set to open at around noon, and they went ahead and announced that that's not going to be happening today, that employees will continue to get to work remotely, and that normal operations will resume tomorrow. So if you are a part of Del Mar College, don't head out there today. And then, of course, Texas A&M University also announcing that they're extending their remote operations through the end of the day. Now, right now, there are no classes in session. School doesn't actually start until next Monday. So the notice sent out for employees who work at the university in order to just let them know, don't try to come in here. The remote order stays in effect. Well, the storm affecting the South Texas Development Summit, the event actually went on. Governor Greg Abbott, though, did not attend that event. That was going to be happening here today. He was originally going to be there in person. He instead spoke to South Texas business leaders over Zoom. So that's understandable that, again, the governor not here in person for the South Texas Development Summit, but he did speak to them over Zoom in order to share information on infrastructure and things of that nature. And so hopefully some folks were still inspired by that. Most folks, though, probably did not get out this morning if they had the choice. We encourage them to stay indoors and to stay with us and to watch the rain and to let the storm unfold. And we're hoping a lot of people took that advice today.
Oh yeah, it's a perfect kind of movie day to stay inside and make yourself a little blanket burrito. That's what I would have been doing if I didn't have this job, but I love it. So we've been tracking that storm for you all morning from the time it was in the Gulf, when Alan and Carly were here super early this morning when it got named Tropical Storm Harold, to the time that it's come inland and now ashore and now inland. So you can still see that circulation really well with the rain wrapping around it down towards Falfurrias, the very edge of our viewing area. You can also see a lot of that rain, that shield, like Alan calls it, coming around that western and northwestern western side. So now the brush country is in line for lots of rain. So we've got flood advisories going until 1:30 for some of our eastern counties like San Patricio, Nueces, and Clayburgh, and then over towards Jim Wells and part of Duval County. I believe that flood warning or flood advisory going until 2:45 the last time that I was able to check that. We also still have a couple of tornado warnings up for our northwestern counties, the very edge of Duval County into McMullen County, Webb, and LaSalle. That is for a little circulation there, as well as over from Live Oak over into the other part of McMullen County. So like Alan and Carly and I have been saying, it's always for these little spin ups, and it's way better to be safe than sorry. So that's why the Weather Service is issuing these tornado warnings for those outer bands as they see the little circulations coming up with the scans of the radar. So that's why those tornado warnings are coming out. You can see again those two to the top left of your screen. Right now in Corpus Christi, we've got lots of rain still falling, and that's from those feeder bands coming in from the Gulf of Mexico, where there's lots of moisture, and it's taking the energy from that storm and just pulling that in. So that's why we're continuing to see those feeder bands, and we'll continue to see them throughout this afternoon and even into this evening. So with that, we're also going to continue to see that tornado risk with the feeder bands into this afternoon and evening, and we'll even continue to see a little rain, I think, into this evening. But again, it'll be way less coverage than we've been seeing this morning for Corpus Christi. We had lots and lots of rain, lots of waves, a little bit of storm surge, so a lot going on in the weather this morning.
I want to chime in real quick. We're going to be logging off here on the air at 12:30, but it doesn't mean that we're unplugging from the storm. We're just going to go more to a digital, mode, and we'll cut in if need be if something looks extra hazardous. But rain going to continue. We're going to continue to cover it. There's a lot of rain out in the brush country right now.
Yeah, that's where it's shifting.
Yep, going west.
Going west.
Yeah.
This, by the way, folks, is what's been happening behind the scenes all morning. They let me talk kind of to bridge the gap.
Yeah.
But, these three folks have been there. They have been busy. And, of course, we are doing all of that because we want you to have the latest and most updated information. This is a team that you can trust, and hopefully you've been able to see that once again this morning. So thank you.
We also couldn't do it without you or Barbie and John Thomas.
Yeah.
Production
all
team.
The production
Absolutely.
team.
Yeah.
They've changed shifts over in
Yep.
between.
Yep.
Our web team as well has
Yeah.
probably changed a few shifts. So the web team, I can't emphasize enough how much they've been helpful posting stuff online, getting that video, the viewer video as well. So thank you to all the viewers who sent in video. It's definitely a team effort across the board.
And not done yet. Again, it's still raining. We're just getting off the air right now.
Yeah.
It sounds like a victory celebration.
Well,
No, it's
We are
leaving,
gonna keep you updated online. We hope you'll stay with us there. Also, of course, stay with our app. And we'll be back here at 5 o'clock tonight with an update on 3 News at 5. But for now, we're going to go ahead and sign off of the air and let us go back to the original programming that was on. Again, a big thank you to everyone here.
Yeah, Alexis and Simone being out in it.
Yeah, thank you
They
to
need a
those of
shout out.
you who have been with us all morning and have been a part of that. We appreciate you. We'll see you back here coming up tonight at 5.